If you or someone you know has diabetes, you may have built up an extra supply of test strips and lancets. That's where we come in. We'll buy the supplies that you don't need and resell them to those in need to prevent waste. Help us make diabetes management more affordable. Visit us at teststripswithaz.com.
All right, joining me right now, and it's only fitting to do this for my first interview with the Body Lock. Had to get on the backpack himself. Aljamain Sterling coming off his big win at UFC 238 over Pedro Munhoz. What's going on, man? How are you?
Doing well, hanging out and just enjoying the fruits of my labor.
I was just gonna ask you what these last couple weeks have been like. I know you did a bunch of interviews after the fight. A couple weeks later, now that it's all really digested, how do you feel about the performance, and what have you been up to the last couple of weeks?
I'm really happy with the performance. There were a couple of things I think I could have still done better from the outside looking in, and just being able to assess it and break down my delivery with everything. And, man, you know what? Pedro's just a tough dude. I think he's going to give a lot of guys problems in the future. But other than that, I don't want to say I pitched a shutout, but I pitched a shutout in terms of the rounds. But I think I definitely put out a little striking clinic out there for the other guys in the division to stand on notice.
What's interesting is I talk to fighters all the time, and us in the media as well. We are our own worst critics. I know you fighters are your own worst critics, and if you ask a lot of people, pretty much everybody across the board will say that was your best performance overall. What in particular did you feel like you didn't do as well as you would have liked to have done?
There was a couple of points where I think I could have sat down on my punches a little bit more just to put a little more body weight behind it. I did a lot of moving while striking, which is my expertise, but just watching it again, I'm just like, man, there was a couple of shots I leaned into, but I was leaning into it while on the move. But if I sat down and stepped through it, there would have been a little bit more impact on when it was landing. So there's a couple of little things, and even the one takedown, I think if I really committed, I could have gotten the takedown. But I really wasn't trying to get the fight to the floor unless I absolutely needed to get it to the floor. But I think if I had gotten one solid takedown, I could have gotten him out of there. I think that would have been another way I could have finished the fight. I'm just thinking of finishing sequences. I pride myself on being a finisher, but man, this competition, it just gets tougher and tougher. But everyone's human, and I know there is a breaking point. You just got to push those right buttons and get them there. So that's kind of where I'm at, just assessing everything and trying to see where I can get better and improve. And hopefully the next time out, we get that finish.
I remember talking to you after the Moraes fight. It was probably about a month or two after that fight, and one of the things you had talked about is you wanted to go back to your old school ways. You felt like you needed to go back to how you were training, how you were fighting, before you got into the UFC, maybe a little bit after that, and you've certainly done that. You've gone back to your old ways. Obviously, you're very comfortable right now, but you've also evolved in a lot of ways, I think, at least from what we're seeing from the outside looking in. What's been the biggest secret to your success lately? Because, you've really turned it around. You're on a roll right now, and things are really starting to come together for you.
I'm going to say the worst thing that I could have imagined could happen to me did happen, which was the knockout. And at that point, I realized what it was. Even though, Marlon threw the kick. He threw the body kick as I was shooting, no setup. It is what it is. He's throwing it as I'm shooting. It just happened to be at that very point in time where my chin was, his knee was. And, I got put out. But when I reassess that and I think about my whole preparation, it was a short notice fight. I didn't really do much studying like I normally do. I was coming off the biggest win of my career over the former champion, Henry at the time, who I dominated after he had lost to Jeremy Stevens, so I felt really confident going into that one, and I didn't do the things that I normally done. I went out for the fight, and I felt like I was a little overconfident. I 100% went out there, and I felt like I was going out. I don't want to say like a walk in the park, but it felt like a regular casual day. It didn't feel like it was fight day. I didn't have the emotions. I didn't have the nerves. I wasn't nervous at all. I just went out. It was like, yeah, dude, you're about to fight. And I was like, shit, man, I'm fighting. When I got clipped and I got dropped behind the ear, I was like, shit, I'm in a fucking fight right now. and my emotions just kind of just went through the roof. I went on autopilot with the jiu-jitsu, and that's like second nature to me. I could wrestle and grapple on the fly, but when it comes to being in a fist fight and wanting to actually hurt somebody, it's a different mindset you got to be in. And yeah, I just wasn't there. And then as soon as I got up, it was just more of an emotional thing, and I just dived right in on a takedown and got put out. And I think that was the worst thing that could have happened to me. And then it put me back into my old school mindset of, taking everyone serious. Everyone is a threat, and a fight's a fight. Anything can happen out there. So you got to make sure you're on your P's and Q's, and cross your T's and dot your I's. And I learned the hardest way you can learn that, and never going into a fight like that again. I don't care who it is. I could talk anything I want to talk. I'm always nervous before a fight, even though if I know I'm just so much better. I always make sure that my nerves are where they should be, because at the end of the day, we just won. We never know what's going to happen. It could just be their night. Every dog has their day. But at the same time, those nerves help you fire on all cylinders. It helps you. It heightens your senses. And I just wasn't there for that Marlon fight. And ever since then, man, I made sure I took myself to that place and found my competitive edge. And that's where I used to be all the time, when I was putting these guys out and finishing these guys. That's where I always was in the past. And I learned, that's pretty much all it is. If I'm there and I show up for work, I truly do believe with anybody who steps in that octagon with me is going to be a good night for myself. And that's just the confidence that comes from my training, and the belief in my skill set, and me just doing my homework and making sure I'm truly prepared.
As fighters, and you talked about it, maybe it wasn't so much for the Moraes fight, but you do feel those nerves heading in. And I actually have a friend here in Massachusetts. He's an amateur welterweight, and he talks about being nervous, actually to the point where he tells his coaches before he's getting ready to make the walk that he doesn't even want to fight. He's like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. But then when he steps in the cage, he slaps the mat down with both hands like Jason Williams used to do when he played for Duke in college basketball, and the nerves just go away. The focus shows up, and the switch really flips for him. Is there something that you do that flips that switch for you, or do the nerves just kind of carry over and then into the fight, and it kind of makes you a better fighter?
Which guy is that?
He's an amateur fighter that I know here in Massachusetts.
You know what, man? Fight day is like a normal day. You wake up and you get out of bed the same, you brush your teeth the same. It's, you do your morning shakeout. I do all those things. I take my power nap before, around like a couple of hours before the bus is going to leave, so that I can recharge the battery and let all the food move through my system and do what it's supposed to do, so it gets to where it needs to be. And I can recover a little bit more. But after that, man, we get on that bus, and it's, I'm watching my motivational videos. I'm maybe watching a highlight, not a highlight, but the last one or two fights of my opponent that my opponent had. Sometimes I'll even watch my own last fight, just to kind of give myself that little extra boost of confidence, where I'm just like, oh yeah, you're that guy. This is what you do. Because at the end of the day, it's like we're going out there, and you have to be at an emotional state. Not emotional in a sense of going out there fighting like a crazy person and not thinking about everything I'm doing, but you have to be in a certain state of mind, and I call it the flow state. You have to be there in order to want to compete, because if you're just going out there flat, I don't think you can fight the way you fight as you've been training and against a guy who's looking to rip your head off the same way as when you're in that flow state. So for me, I do all those things, and I talk to myself a little bit, and these guys don't do anything to you. So that's the other thing. You got to kind of give yourself a reason. At least for myself, I have to there has to be a reason why I want to smack this guy upside his head. And that's why I talk a little bit of shit, to kind of stir the pot, to give it more of something to clamor to be like, we're fighting for more than we're just fighting. One, we're fighting for a paycheck. I only get half my money if I lose. And money's not the biggest incentive for me anymore like it used to be. I mean, obviously that's a bonus. I just like competing. But the money's always nice. But having that extra thing, like we're fighting for pride, we're fighting for the higher stakes of you said this and I said this, and now is who's going to eat their words. There's a lot that goes into it, man. I can't really chalk it up to one thing. I more so say I think everyone's different. Some people don't warm up. Some people warm up a lot. Some people warm up not. This is so many different things, and everyone. I mean, I don't know if I really have a ritual, but I kind of go through certain steps. Like this last fight, they didn't wrap my hands. I want to say to like 40 minutes before the fight, and which means I had to start rushing my warm up. And I was like, dude, what is this? This is the first time these guys taking so long, and I had to get on them like, dude, I need my hands wrapped like now because you guys are moving slower than molasses right now. This is the craziest thing I've ever seen. I've never had to deal with that before, where there's just so much pressure. You feel like the walls are closing in. You're not going to be ready in time. I'm like, dude, I need to do my warm up, whatever. But yeah, to answer your question, I don't know if I really have a set ritual, but I do find my focus of why I'm doing it, and I try to remember all those things and all those emotions, and I try to remember the emotions I've had from past fights where I performed the best, and just go out there and have some fun. It's all about the attitude.
I think what's interesting about the trajectory of your career right now is that for a lot of the times that we've spoken over the last couple of years, you've always been the hunter. You've been looking for fights. You've been calling for Rivera. You've been calling for Cruz. You've been calling for all these fighters. But now things have started to turn a little bit. Now you get guys coming for you. You're the hunted now. Petr Yan is coming after you. Really wants to get that fight with you to try to solidify that number one contendership, which I believe, and I think a lot of other people believe, you are the number one contender for the bantamweight title right now. How does that feel to kind of be on the other side of the spectrum here, having guys calling for you, trying to make a name off of you, as opposed to you trying to get up the ranks and looking for a fight and having a hard time finding them with the guys that you want to get in there with?
I mean, it's cool. It's flattering. It lets me know that I've done my work. I put my time in this organization and in the sport. I made my mark. At the end of the day, I always said one of the things I wanted to do when it's all said and done is I want to be one of those fighters who is going to be remembered for his work of art. And I pride myself on that. I want to be that guy who's going to forever be a staple in the history books. And this is what I do it for. I don't know what everybody else does it for. And like I said, the money is nice. Before, when I was making $500 to fight, I thought I was the richest man ever when I was a college kid. And I thought I struck gold, and the paydays kept going up. And I was like, dude, I can actually really do this for a living. This is actually really dope. But now, taking into account all these things, and now I'm here at this I'm at the top of the sport. I've earned my title shot. I don't think anyone's has a bigger redemption story than myself. And in the way that it happened is like, for me, it's infamous because of the way it happened, because of my whole MO, the dancing guy who does the dab, who does, all these new school dances, and then he ends up in that same position on international TV. And then I have to go out there and find my balls and sack up and put them on the table and say, this is me, this is who I am, and show my teeth a little bit and battle back against tough guys. My first fight back is against a guy who everyone's super high on, in Brett Johns, undefeated, just beat Joe Soto in the craziest way you could ever think possible with a calf slicer. And Joe Soto, and just to give you a little background, Joe Soto tooled me when I went out there to go train with Cody Gibson after we fought. The very next year, Cody and not the very next year, a couple of months later, I went out there and trained with Cody Gibson. We spoke on Twitter, and Joe Soto he took us to Joe Soto's gym, and we grappled. I had no idea about leg locks, and he smashed me. So the way that Brett Johns was able to dispatch a leg lock guy like that, it really put things in perspective. I was like, dude, this kid is fucking legit. This kid is good. And he's only lost to two guys, myself and Pedro Munhoz. And there's no shame in that, But then I battled back a Cody Stamann, who's another hot prospect. And then I battled back Jimmy Rivera, a guy I had beef with for a very long time, top 5 in the world. I beat him. I shut him out all 3 rounds. And then the same thing with Pedro Munhoz. I shut him down all 3 rounds, who's coming off a huge knockout over the former champion who schooled Dominic Cruz. So these guys, I'm taking guys out with tough resumes, and I was calling for these fights, and I didn't have no problem doing that. And now I got the Petr Yans calling me out, and I will say he's the only one who's really calling me out right now. There's not a lot of guys calling me out. Like after I got knocked out, a lot of guys started calling me out, thinking that I just didn't have it anymore. They didn't think I had the goods anymore. And for me to come back and find, like I said, find my balls and show people who remind them who I am and show the world who I know I can be. That's a tough thing. That's not a lot of guys have done that. And guys get knocked down, they don't come back the same. So I'm very happy with my career, and people call me out. I think it's more flattery than anything. I earned my spot. Hopefully I don't gotta wait too long to try to realize a dream, and just go from there, man. At the end of the day, I don't care who it is. I fight whoever, and I think everyone knows that at this point. And I don't want to say like Donald Cerrone, but I fight whenever, whoever, and that's it. That's pretty much it.
With Cejudo having surgery and looks like he's going to be out for the rest of the year. I know Yan has a surgery, but he says it's only going to be like 4 to 5 weeks or so before he's ready to come back. Do you feel at this point that your next fight's going to be against Petr Yan just because of the timetable and how long Cejudo might be out for?
That is a possibility. I mean, I think it all depends on when I want to fight next, but the first things first, I'm enjoying my summer, my Long Island summer. We don't really have summers, so that's a must. I'm hanging out. I'm still training. I'm doing like lifting right now. My thumb, I have 2 partial tears on the radial side of my ligament on the thumb and the ulnar side of the ligament on the thumb. And this is supposed to be like one more week, I think. They get it reassessed and see if it scarred down. And I'll be good to go. So then I can start hitting pads again, getting back into shape, getting my abs back. They kind of disappeared on me a bit, but they're on vacation right now too. My abs are on vacation, but so that's where I'm at, man. I can fight whenever if I really, really wanted to, but none of these guys who I want to fight are hurt, so I'm not going to take a stupid stay busy fight. But I don't know. We'll see what happens, man. If it makes sense, if it's going to be like a new contract, I'll do something. But if it's going to be rushed to get back for no reason, if it's not going to be a title fight, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. I think I earned my keep. I think I put on the performance of a lifetime in terms of my career. And I think the UFC brass realizes that. I think they were very impressed, very happy with my development over the years. It might have taken me a while, but we're finally here. We're finally showing everybody what we do in the training room on the biggest stage, and I couldn't be happier, So that's where my mindset is at. It could be Petr Yan, but if it's Petr Yan, it's for a belt. It's not for, hey, we're fighting for a number 1 contender. I am the number 1 contender. You beat my leftovers. You beat a guy I dominated. I can't really see how that makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I think that's the only other fight that makes any sense besides Cejudo right now. And, if Cejudo was ready to go in like 3 or 4 months, that's the fight. You've earned that opportunity, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
I saw like you guys went back and forth a little bit on Twitter. So I wanted to ask you, are you excited to head out to International Fight Week, check out Vegas? I know I saw you have a wedding coming up to attend out there as well. What's your International Fight Week going to look like?
Yeah, it kind of sucks. I know one of my good friends is getting married. But I really wanted to go to the fights. I had planned to go to the fights, and when he sent out the wedding invitation, I was like, I just feel like his wedding is during International Fight Week. I checked the calendar, and sure enough, it's during the International Fight Week. And this has been planned for a while now. I wasn't gonna go if I was gonna get paid a good amount of money, but then it turned to something else, and I don't know whatever happened. I think this one kind of slipped through the cracks. I was told that they didn't think that they thought I was maybe gonna go, but I was always gonna go. I was planning on going to Vegas the entire week and just hang out, go to UFC PI Center, and do what I can for recovery. Do a couple appearances and that stuff. But yeah, I'm excited to go. I got that charity poker tournament on Sunday at the Aria. I think a couple of other fighters are gonna be there. Scott Blumstein is supposed to be playing as well. He won the World Series of Poker in 2018. I met him before. He's a super cool dude. And he's got a really cool story. He lost a ton of weight. He used to be very heavy set, but he lost a ton of weight, which I was very happy to see that he made that commitment. And was very proud of him for that. And other than that, man, we're gonna be hanging, catching some sun. I'll be working on my tan, and drinking a couple margaritas and getting a little crazy, man. It's just enjoying the fruits of my labor. That's pretty much the best way I can explain it. Still work out, but at the same time, I'm enjoying my downtime. I don't get to have this downtime, especially the summers. And we're gonna make sure we work hard, we play hard, man. We everyone in this sport does so much, and we give it our all, never knowing if we're going to truly win or lose. At the end of the day, we can't predict the future. We can try to prepare for it as best as we can, but this sport can take a toll on you mentally. So to be able to unwind is one of the best feelings, man, especially hanging out with good friends. And that's why I want to go to the wedding, because the entire team's going to be there. So for me to not to go, I would be that guy. So at this point, I'm like, I got to do the right thing and go to the wedding, have some fun in Vegas, and come back, and we're gonna have a shit show at the wedding. Matt Serra's coming, Ray Longo. It's gonna be fun.
Oh, what a wedding that's gonna be with those guys. I wonder who the best dancer in the crew is.
We're gonna try to get Raging Al on the dance floor.
Oh man, you gotta put that on your podcast. Make a little video edit clip and throw that on your podcast. Let's talk about your podcast. How you like doing it? I mean, you're very consistent with it. You have a lot of great insight. Talk about the show. Let the folks know where to find it and how much you like enjoying doing the podcasting stuff.
It's fun. And so far, so good. I think the hardest part is trying to do it like, let's say a Joe Rogan or Ariel, who's got like guys that they could pay to pull up stats and things like them. They have the overhead monitor that they can read from. I don't have all that yet. I started as a hobby. I just enjoy talking about the fights. I think it's made me a better coach, and it's made me a better fighter because I could break down the matchups from what I remember. I like some people, they go back and they watch it. I don't go back and I watch it. I just go strictly by my memory, exactly what I remember the fight going. So as I'm watching, I'm thinking about stuff that I want to talk about or things that I noticed that they were doing really well, and I'll break it down on I call it the weekend rewind segment, and I'll break down the fights that I thought stood out the most, and pretty much all the main card fights. But it's been fun. I got it on iTunes. I got it on Google Play, TuneIn, on all those platforms. My website, aljamainsterling.com. And the next portion of it that I would like to develop is to start bringing in guests. The only thing about bringing in guests, not everyone watches the fights, and it's primarily a fight podcast. So unless I do like a separate segment or I only recap the fights from last weekend, then maybe that could work just to save on time, because I don't want to be doing podcasts that are like 2 hours plus. It's already hard enough to keep up with Rogan's, and when they're like 3 hours. They're always great, but I'm like 3 hours. I got to break this up into like a whole week of just to watch one episode because I'm so busy, But I'm doing what I can, and I enjoy it, man. I'm trying to develop this thing. I just bought some new equipment, so hopefully this could make things a little bit more professional looking from the outside looking in. But right now, I'm happy with the way things are going.
Has doing the podcast, has that kind of given you like a different kind of light on the media and PR and things like that? Like you're learning what, some of the media members go through to try to get interviews and put these shows together. And then at the same time, does this seem like a road you might want to take? I know, you're on the cusp of fighting for a belt, so we don't want to talk about like post-fight stuff, but in terms of like your career after fighting, can you see yourself in the broadcast world, see yourself on a desk breaking down fights on ESPN or any of those other stations? Is that something you might want to do down the road?
Yeah, for sure. I'd done something with Fox in the past, and I thought that was really good. I think it went really well. I thought the broadcast team, they really enjoyed having me. I think they were expecting me to win the fight against Brian Caraway so that I could promote the fight against Dominic Cruz. And being that I lost that fight, I think that pushed me a little bit down the ladder in terms of getting on the broadcast team. That desk is usually a desk full of winners, or champions or title challengers. So I understood where that, they didn't say that, but I knew that's what it was. And at the end of the day, I just got to keep building my brand, building myself up, and keep growing as a person individually. I'm down to do all these things. It really just depends on what doors open up and where's my niche. So me doing the podcast, I think, like I said, it's made me a better coach. I've been cornering a lot more fighters of late. I'm going to Japan next month for 5 days to corner Oka Sasaki, UFC vet at Risen. And these guys are starting to want me to come out more for their fights. So my time is getting taken up doing a lot of other things. So I'm trying to make everything work and try to figure out the best way to go about stuff while still being able to maintain time for me and live life the way I want to live it. So I'm just kind of just going by things day by day and taking things step by step. But I do see how hard it is to get interviews and stuff. But I haven't brought anyone in for or called anyone up for an interview. So I'm still learning that portion. But once I learn that, then I can start scheduling stuff. I've had people already offered. Tyron Woodley hit me up, like, "Yo, I see you doing your podcast. I'm taking a break with mine. If you want me to be your interview, I know how hard it is to schedule something." I was like, "Dude, I don't want to waste your time. I'm just learning this thing. Let me do a couple of episodes to make sure that I'm serious and I want to actually do this for real. And then before I start trying to book guests, and next it's debunked in like a month or two, So now we're almost a year strong, man. I'm pretty pumped about it. So far so good for the weekly scraps.
Yeah, consistency is key in this game, and you've done a great job with that. And it's Friday morning. I've taken 25 minutes of your time. I didn't realize how long we've been talking for, and I really appreciate it. But before we let you go, let the folks know where to find and follow you on the web, social media, sponsors, shout-outs, all that good stuff. The floor is yours.
You guys can follow me on the Twitter or on Instagram at Funkmaster_UFC. Shout out to my sponsors, Everlast, Trendy Butler, and of course, Hydrocana. They are a new CBD company. It's more of a hydration drink. So if you're hungover or you're cutting weight and you need to rehydrate, they've done like all the scientific background studies on actual subjects to test the hydration levels, and they got like the perfect ratio that's supposed to help you. I don't know the numbers, but supposedly they have the perfect ratio formula for that, which is like the sodium to the chlorine to the potassium, and they got the perfect dosage for that. So it's been pretty good so far. They make CBD infused water, and they make CBD drinks like little shooters and powder sticks. So you can take that, pop that in, and you feel a lot better with a good amount of CBD, and as well for those guys on the CBD craze. So it's the best of both worlds, hydration, But other than that, man, we're living the dream. Let's go.